Okay. Our next presenter is Joey Shan. He'll be presenting the topic of tools to make your life easier. Joey is the top-rated developer in App Exchange. He's founder of Cloud Jetty Solutions. He's also a community group leader in the Philippines. And with this, Joey, you can take control. You stop sharing.
Sure. Yep. All right. I'll start presenting now. Can you see my screen or not yet?
It's coming.
Uh,
And
all right.
ready. Wait.
All good or okay? Yes, go ahead. Can you see it now or not yet?
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, there you go. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. So I'm here to talk about some of the tools that I actually use personally on a daily basis. So let me just tell you a bit about myself, although been introduced already. So I'm the founder and principal consultant of Cloud Jedi Solutions. We mostly work with companies based in the US. To help them scale their business. So a lot of what we do is custom implementation and custom integrations. So I've been working with Salesforce for the past 12 years now. I started back in college, wherein there's a company that actually taught Salesforce as an elective. From then on, I actually joined that company, and then that basically became the journey that I had for the past 12 years. I've actually already worked with around 80 plus Salesforce orgs so far. A lot of them are between 10 users to 800 users. So our expertise is into architecture, custom development integrations, and as mentioned, we're currently the top developer in the App Exchange in terms of ratings. I also lead the Philippines community group and also the founder of the Philippines Raven. All right. So the topic today is about 5 free tools that you can actually start using as soon as we're done with the presentation, right? A lot of these are Chrome extensions that you can easily install. So it depends on your organization if they restrict it, but for the most part, if you can install Chrome, you can use these tools. All right. First one is the Salesforce Inspector. So I'll be sending over the links on how you can install it later on, but so this is actually the Salesforce Inspector. Some of the things that you can do from here is, for example, if you want to search for users, you can easily find somebody here. And then by simply clicking on it, you can either log in as a user or click the details. Normally, whenever we need to find a specific user, we'd have to go to the setup, go to the users, and then search for it, and then go through the list, right? So we actually have this easy way to do that. And then from here, we could also look at different objects. You'll notice this one. This is one of the most useful tools that I have in terms of debugging things. So normally, we actually have quite a number of fields in the background, right? So for example, we have the contact record open right now. One good way for you to see the data that's actually not visible on the page layout is actually using this tool. From here, you can then easily find all of the fields and all of the values, even though they're actually not visible in the page layout. So it's actually good for cases wherein you have different record types and you have different page layout that show or hide different fields, right? Using this same tool, you can actually see all of the records and even update them within this specific tool. So for example, if I need to change the mailing street, I
Joey,
just need to change. Yep.
can you zoom in a little from in
Sorry?
the spot you're pointing? Zoom in.
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Oh, if you can
Zoom in. All
Yes,
right, there you go.
thank you.
So is it better or more? All right.
I
So
think
from
that's
here, we can, for example, change the mailing street to 123 test, and all we have to do is save it and then refresh this. That would then change the mailing address, right? So this is actually quite useful in terms of debugging things and at the same time looking at the details that you normally don't see. It can be cumbersome to have to add a specific field on the page layout just because you want to see the value, right? And then from here, this is actually one of the most used, at least for me. This is where we can actually write SOQL. So we've actually learned a lot from the previous presentation on how we can write SOQL, right? This is one of the tools that you can actually start using to at least practice your SOQL, right? So for example, I could, let's say, typically you would start with select ID and then object, let's say contact in this case. Once it has the details, yeah, there you go. It can now suggest different fields from within that object. So let's say I want the account ID, I want the assistant name, assistant phone. Let's see, we can open it up. We can see the department, the email, and then from here we can easily export. Take note, by the way, whenever you're adding fields using this tool, you just have to make sure to remove the trailing comma here and then export. I'm guessing a lot of you have used data loader. What I'm about to show you is actually a really fast way to make changes without having to deal with CSV files. So for example, let's look at, let's say first name, last name, and email from contact. We can easily export this. And then there's actually this button that allows you to copy it in memory and easily paste it in Excel. So for example, what I'll do is I'll copy in Excel and then open up Excel, easily paste that. And then from here, for example, there's example.com, right? I can change it to our domain, for example, at cloudjet.com, replace all. And then from here, I don't actually need to save this as a CSV file. What I can do is then use the data import, select update, select the corresponding object, in this case, contact. And then all we have to do is go back here. Actually, let me go back. I forgot to include the ID. We actually need the ID in order to update the records. So let's do that again. I'll paste this in to the replace. And then from here, what we can do is copy all of the data that we have. And then using the data import, simply paste the data here. It's actually intelligent enough to map the corresponding fields to its API name. All we have to do it now is simply import it. So you'll see all of the updated records and any other records that encountered an error from here. So from here, you can either retry it later on, turn off the validation rules, or you can either copy it again, create a new, and then sort it according to the error. So that way you have this list that you can then just reprocess. Any questions so far? I'll keep an eye on the chat window. If ever you have any questions, feel free to update us. And then The last one is basically a really easy way for you to see the different limits that you have. So from here, you'll see a lot of different charts. This one's a developer org, so you won't really see much. So you see the number of Scratch orgs, API requests. So just a really easy way for you to see all of the details. All right, that's actually it for this specific tool. No questions? All right. So the next one is Salesforce Organizer. So these are some of the features. It's not the extensive list, but it allows you to manage Salesforce logins. Although I personally don't use it, I use 1Password. Some may be using LastPass or any other password management, which of course is highly recommended. We actually deal with a lot of sensitive information, and we actually need to make sure we're as secure as possible. So one of the best used features for me on this one is actually the keyboard shortcuts. So whenever you need to go to a specific area, let's say in the setup, normally you'd have to click on the setup, go look for it, and then do it, find it, right? So for example, I'll just show you a typical process. So let's say if I need to create a field within an object, what I what we used to do is go to setup. Either you use the object manager or the schema builder, and then create the fields from there, right? What? So we can add the fields here, and then from there. One way you could do that, especially if you're dealing with setup a lot, is actually using this organizer, wherein I simply need to type in Control Shift Space, and it will actually show us a different options for in terms of command. So let's say if I want to go to schema builder, I just need to type in SCH, and then I can have all of these options with SCH. So in this case, I can either open up schema builder within the same window or a new tab. I just need to click on command click, so that will open up a new tab for me. I'm the type that tends to open up quite a lot of tabs in order to speed things up. So that could be a really good way to actually stay within the same record and see and add more fields as needed, right? From here, I mean, you have quite a lot of options. So let's say you want to go to the Apex debug logs. So you can go easily open it up from here. We could easily open up the object manager, flow. Yes. So you can imagine how it can actually speed things up. Normally, easily takes up what 3-5 seconds to go to somewhere, right? But with this tool, you can easily open up all of these pages easily. All right. Another feature that it has is quick query. So a lot of the tools that I'll be showing today is actually somewhat overlapping. This is another tool that would allow you to, for example, do a query within this page. So this is just a different interface, but I personally still use Salesforce Inspector a lot. But this could be an option for some people. So what it allows you to do is have this nice page. So let's say it's name. It allows you to have this paginated view. But then for data export, it allows you to show all of the data at once. And then one of the things, I'm not sure if you're aware, one of the things that you can do using developer console is execute Apex code within Salesforce, right? In order to test things. For example, you have some code and you wanted to test that. You could simply open up developer console and then let's see. Let's wait for it to load up. Let me try it again. Mhm. I'm not sure why it's not loading up, but my point is, whenever you need to run Apex code, you can actually use this tool instead to run some debugging. Let's say if you want to test some, if you're learning Apex or you wanted to test something, you could use this, or you could use this, right? The problem with this one is if you have developer console turned on and you have some Apex jobs running in the background, it can actually slow the browser a lot because it actually logs all of the bug log here. So you may actually instead use a lightweight version like this one and execute and see all of the raw data within here. All right. Any questions so far? So far, I think it has already been addressed by Linda. All right. Let me close this. From here, you could also look at different object fields. So let's say we go to this contact record. Query all fields. There you go. So from here, it's another way for you to see all of the fields and be able to edit it. So you'll notice quite a number of overlaps, right? Another one is a quick org describe the different objects and fields. This may take a while though. So these are all of the objects available within the org. And then we can then describe all of the details in terms of getting the fields, what their type is, what their, for example, if pick list, you could see the different pick list values. So this one I haven't really used much, but allows you to replace the API names. So let's say if you need something that, let's say you have a report and then you have the ID there. Normally, the ID that you would get is actually just 15-digit. So just to a quick tip. So in terms of Salesforce ID, this is actually the Salesforce ID. Normally, you'd see this. The first 3 digit here is actually the object itself that defines what the object is. So in our specific case, for contact, it's 003. For account, it's 001. There's actually a table out there that would tell you what each of the standard object prefix is. And then the difference between the 15-digit and the 18-digit is simply for older systems that are case insensitive. So basically, 15-digit is case sensitive and the 18-digit one is case insensitive. All right. So as much as possible, you'd want to use the 18-digit version, especially if you're doing lookups, since there are actually cases wherein there's actually a massive data load and a lot of the lookups doesn't work well because they're using the 15-digit instead of the 18-digit one. And then from here, you can even log in as, and here are all of the different options for organizer. You can, for example, sync it between different devices, apply dark mode, shortcuts, just where you can define it, import and export the settings and all. All right, let me just check. Any questions? Yeah, correct. So this is actually part of Salesforce Organizer. So we'll be sending over the links to each of these apps later on. So yeah. And then next one. This is actually the first one that I've been using. Let me just just give you a quick demo first before we just, this one's quite boring. I'll just show you the demo itself. So in this specific case, one of the, let's say if you're trying out SOQL for the first time, normally, as mentioned, you could get the API name from Object Manager, right? But what if, let's say, you're looking at a contact, and there are actually cases wherein we have this, we have an object wherein the labels are exactly the same, the API name are different. So how would you know to distinguish between each of those? So one of the neat features of it is actually this one, show object API name. So all you have to do, let's say if you're on a specific record detail, click on this one, and then you'll notice the API name is actually here, surrounded in parentheses. So home phone, mobile phone, other phone, fax, email, and then you can easily hide or show it as needed. For Apex developers out there, if you just need a really quick way to create records, or there's an Apex code generator that allows you to easily grab the data from this specific record and have a quick Apex code that you can easily copy and paste however you need it. And then this is actually one of my most favorite feature. So yes, we do actually have an option of going to the object manager in order to get the fields. But this is my favorite way of doing it. I would usually just do a export field definition. And then as soon as you click on it, it would give you a really nice formatted file. So this is actually very useful for admins and consultants. Let's say if you want to create a data dictionary, this is actually a really fast way to see all of what you have right now, right? So it gives you this nicely formatted, including all the API names, field labels, data types, the field types, and even pick list values. So even if you have a formula field, it will actually give you the formula itself to see all of the details. So let's say you'll be able to see which fields are being referenced from here. You easily do a search. So mailing. So this should be useful for a lot of people though. From here, you can even export the definition of the page layout or the list view. This is how it looks like. So we have these fields showing up in what position, if it's read only or required. And then these are all of the related lists. And then these are simply shortcuts in order for you to go to different locations. Let's say if I want to go to the list view, I'll just open this up. If I want to go and create a new record, I can open it up. And then normally for developers, we tend to work a lot with debug logs. So this is a quick way to go to the debug logs directly. So from here, it will show you all of the recent debug logs. And then from here, just a quick shortcut. Let's say either you can refresh it or click on view to see the details. So this is actually one of another favorite item that we have. For example, let's say you want to go to a contact. And you want, let's say, remember, I can export the objects one at a time, right? What if you're doing some work for a client and you want to export several different objects at the same time? What you can do, for example, I can select contact, account, opportunity, contact role, and opportunity product. From this selection, I can either export the object fields definition. Let's see that. You'll notice how fast it is. So It gives you a really nice Excel file containing all of the details. In each tab would be all of the definitions for each of those objects. Another would be useful, especially for Jake, by the way, just a quick shout out. So this one's a really quick way for you to build an ERD. So notice I selected that. So this gives you a really nice entity diagram that you can then present to people to see all of the different possible relationships that we have for those selected objects. And then from here, we could also go through it and then click on page layouts. The same thing, it gives you a nice Excel file with all of the layouts that you selected. And then lastly, you could also look at the list views. Let's take a look at it. So far, it looks like no questions. Feel free to ask away now. Let's see, it's taking time though. Anyway, you could look into this later on. So from here, that's actually about it for the dev tools. So far, no questions, right? All right, great. So take note, some of these are actually, let's see, I'll be sending over the links later and I'll also have the slide for it. So some of the things that you can do is export objects API in the Excel file, generate the ERD. So show all of the API name for a specific object, generate the Apex code, and then access to new record and list pages, debug log, and I'm not sure if some of you have experienced this one, but let's say if you have, let's say 100 fields on a specific object, if not more, it can be quite tiresome to have to tick on each box whenever you, let's say you want to grant, read, or edit access to it. So one of the things that this tool can do is for a specific object, let's say account, it just adds a quick way for you to easily check all of the fields or none of the fields. So you'll notice this, you can easily tick this one rather than individually ticking this one, which can be frustrating if you have hundreds of fields, if not more, and have to do that for each one. So this is a quick way to do it. So next tool that we have is Workbench. So our first presenter already actually gave a quick sneak peek on this one, but this is actually Workbench. So this is a tool that you don't actually need to install. All you have to do is go to workbench.developerreports.com, log into your org. From here, you have access to quite a lot of things. If you want to look at different objects metadata, let's say looking at the account, it will give you different things like the fields, all the details, different record types. And then from here, you could also look at metadata types or session information. All right, so from here, you use user. Same thing, by the way, you could actually also use this. This is another way for me to do a quick query. Let's say ID name from contact. It will then show all of the details to you. And from the same one, you could actually also even download it using bulk CSV. Let's say if you have millions of records here, you could use this and it will download this as CSV. One quick one note, by the way, regarding SOQL is that if you're coming from a separate database like MySQL, there's what we call a select asterisk, which will tell it, hey, give me all of the fields from Salesforce. This is actually not a recommended practice, but if you actually have a need for this, one way you could do that is you could, for example, select all of the fields. And then you'll notice there's an error. All you have to do is remove this count by control selecting it, and it will actually give you all of the fields. So you might have cases wherein one-off cases wherein you need all of the fields to show up. You could easily use this. Actually, let me go back. Selected about CSV. So you'll see this one. And then from here, you could also even do asynchronous queries, do searching, search for Joey. So these are all of the records that would show up with the term Joey. And then from here, this can also act as a data loader. If you have a CSV file that's not too big, take note you can either work with a single record or from a file. You could simply upload, for example, contact or account using this tool. Take note, I don't recommend using this for large data loads, mainly because it has limitations in terms of the data that you can process. So you can either update, upsert, delete, or undelete from here. Another way you could use this for is the metadata API. So let's say if you have some one-off instances wherein you have the package deployed that you want to deploy, you could package up the zip file and then from here upload it to the work directly without having to install anything. From here, you could also use the REST API to test it out. And then another thing, you could also use this for execute anonymous. You could type debug log and then you see the details here. This is actually something that, as far as I know, not many people know about. Normally, whenever we're doing doing some password management, in some cases wherein for customer support, let's say we need to give somebody access. Let's say the person is having hard time, let's say, getting to Salesforce. One possible way to do that, let's say we have the user ID. So let's say I want to change the password for this specific user. What I can do is take note, copy this part, and then type in the user ID here. You could then set a specific password, test password, and then that will then change the password for that user. The next time that user logs in, they'll then be given the option of changing the password for, of course, security purposes. But that makes it easier for some users, especially those that are having hard time getting in. Any questions so far? From here, you could easily check bulk API status if you have the job ID, and then metadata API process status if you have the ID. All right. So far, it looks like no questions here. From here, take note, there are several settings that may be interesting for you. Let's say smart lookup. Normally, whenever we're doing data loads, let's say we're dealing with a lookup or a master data relationship, we still need to, let's say, export the IDs, right? So this could be an option if you have the name, and you could set, for example, foreign key and tell it that, hey, I want you to use this foreign key in order to do an observe. So you could turn on or off these data management options, insert null values, allowed field truncation. So this is quite flexible in terms of how you could use it. And then you could also change the API. And then this is another setting that you may be interested in, that you may want to turn on. Let's say allow SOQL parent relationship queries. So if I turn this on, apply settings, query, select from contact, right? What if you want to get the name, account name? So turning that option would allow you to see the details like this, ID and the account name for those things. All right. So for my last tool, this is actually toolkit for Salesforce. This is actually composed of several different tools. We won't have time to do each one of these, but some of the features is, for example, our organization doctor, um, comparing orgs, easily create fields, schema. This one can be useful for those doing deployments. Let's say if you need to easily turn on or off certain workflows or validation rules and easily change it all back to the previous state. So this can help you with that. So I can give you a quick demo of the field creator. All you have to do is log into the org that you have. And then query whatever object that you want to create the fields on. So from here, we can use, for example, account. Let's say you're dealing with hundreds of fields that you need to create. So you could use this. Yes. From here, easily change the type. And then default options like the length, description. Let's save it. Add a new one, number, field. And then from here, change it to number. Change the options. So let's say I only want integers. Then save. From here, you can then deploy the fields. This will then automatically create the fields in the background. So these are default profile permissions. So just make sure to take note of this site. And then, yeah, there's quite a lot here. So we won't actually go through each one. But yeah, that's about it for me then. So I'll have this list sent out. And then let me know if you have any questions. All right, I'll stop presenting since we have a third speaker for tonight. So